Hey guys, my name is Hunter Blain. I'm the author of the Preternatural Chronicles, which is an urban fantasy series about a vampire. A lot of my reviewers are calling it Deadpool meets The Punisher as a vampire, so there's a lot of humor. There's some gore, a story about a revenge and coming into oneself. There's some existential crisis in there. He might be the center of the apocalypse between heaven and hell. Who knows? But anyway, so we're going to go over some stuff today. A lot of questions I've been getting from some of my fans out there. And let's get this party started. My inspiration for the series actually came from my best friend, John, who also stars in the Preternatural Chronicles. He had always liked my writing when we were growing up, and one day he made me promise to write a book about him. And I was like, all right, dude, what do you want to be? And growing up reading Anne Rice and other books like that, he immediately knew vampire. So I was like, cool, dude. And he's like, make sure it's not those sparkly ones like in the sun. I was like, all right, man, I got you. More like Deadpool the vampire. All right. So he made me promise, and then he died and left me with that promise. So I actually wrote the first book, I'm Glad You're Dead, just for me. And it turns out that our friends really like it, and I've self-published it, and it's doing surprisingly well. And that's where I draw the inspiration from. I get that all the time because it's about my best friend who's dead. And so I wrote a book, I'm Glad You're Dead. I completely see where they're coming from on that one. But once again, the first book was written just for me, and it's an inside joke. So I'm Glad You're Dead actually comes from a couple of different areas. One, it's the 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. At one point, Jack Nicholson actually, says that a bunch of times as he's talking to one of the characters that he had just killed. So John and I would always joke and laugh, randomly just throw in, yeah, I'm glad you're dead. And it just stuck. And second, he's also a vampire, so he's technically undead. So it kind of works on multiple levels. So that's why I called it I'm Glad You're Dead. The very first thing I had to come up with is, how are my vampires different? The hiss, bite thing has been done, right? Garlic and churches and crucifixes and all that other stuff. To me, that's kind of boring. Plus, my series is urban fantasy and not fantasy. So urban fantasy is actually grounded in reality. So there's a lot of, I explain a lot of things scientifically. How does he get blood from his victims? Well, he can do the neck biting, of course, but I really changed it up where he can manifest blood weapons. Use his blood, use his energy that he has, and make like daggers or swords or shields, hammers, all kinds of interesting, fun stuff. So one of my favorite things for him to do is he'll manifest a blood dagger and then stab the bad guy in his blood-soaked liver and just exsanguinate him that way. That's one major reason I wanted it to be different. And plus, like I said, it'd be an urban fantasy. There's also, crucifixes. That doesn't make sense to me. Garlic, blah, blah, blah. There has to be some rules, though. For every power, he has to have one or two consequences to having that. So sunlight is very much something, and I explained that in the series in as scientific way as possible. He has to have blood to survive because he gets the blood energy from the person, and that's how they survive. I actually explained the whole back history of vampires, which is pretty cool, up to the very first one. So, but honestly, that's just how mine are different, is based in reality, a scientifically explainable reality. So there are going to be 13 novels in the series. There's going to be a couple of novellas thrown in there for good measure. For example, Deliverance is my first novella. It's book 0.5 in the series. It's actually available for free on hunterblain.com. You just put in your email address, and then it immediately redirects you to a page where you can download the PDF. It's also on Amazon for like 99 cents, which is the cheapest I can make it. So there's going to be 13 books in the whole series, because I know that was John's favorite number because it's unlucky 13, but it also fits for the kind of story. And I have all the books planned out, which is amazing, because something that happens in book 2 has implications of book 6, and then there's going to be a big twist somewhere along in the series that the reader's going to probably get mad at me about, but I don't care. It's a lot of fun. But planning out the whole series allows me to throw in breadcrumbs here and there and plan out the butterfly effect of something happens here, impacts over here. So 13 books total, though. Well, that's a great question, but one does not simply plan to become a writer. You see, what happens is the ghost of Halloween past comes and visits you and gives you a set of tasks that you must complete with increasing difficulty until you get to your final quest, which is to write a book. And once you've done that, you're a writer. So that was my first real foray into writing in earnest, right? So for example, Deliverance is actually the fourth thing I've written, and I found my voice. I toned some stuff down. I figured out some tips and tricks. I figured out, well, I think dialogue I've always kind of had because I knew what my best friend would say in situations. But you just have to do it. You know, there's nothing to it but to do it. I like to say, what's the best way to eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. But one of my friends pointed out that maybe a more appropriate saying would be impossible things throughout history have been completed because the person doing them was too stupid to know they couldn't be done. I've listened to over 200 audiobooks, from great writers out there. Some of my favorites are Richard Cadre, Jem Butcher, Kevin Hearn. I've listened to just over 200 books, and I really pay attention to story style. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, like Jem Butcher has a bunch where he explains his writing process and why he does stuff. And I also subscribe to Masterclass, where I've listened to Neil Gaiman. He's my favorite on Masterclass so far, where he explains the whole writing process from from thought process to publishing. And after listening to so many books, you just stop and go, man, that was a really cool part. That made me feel something, that made me go, whoa. So then you notate, why did it make you do that? In what way? Was it because you weren't anticipating it? So to answer your question, how did I come up with the story? I just put John in a situation. I knew how it was supposed to end, and I just let him go off and do his own thing. And I, as the writer, got to experience the whole story as if I was reading it, because as I was typing, the story was unfolding. One, I own a store called Empire Nutrition. I've been really working on that for a number of years, vitamins, proteins, fish oils, that kind of thing. I have a website, empirenutrition.com. I have an app for both Google and now Apple. Apple, don't even get me started on those guys though, and how hard it was to get my app out there. But anyway, so sell it wholesale instead of retail for anyone out there. I'm married, been with my wife 12 and a half years. We have 2 puppies, one of which was a rescue, pit bull that we saved the day before she was to be killed. Cue the ahs. And we like to go to the drive-in actually on Saturdays because they allow dogs, and that's actually a whole lot of fun for us. And then writing is actually a whole lot of fun for me. Man, there are so many things that have surprised me. I'm the kind of person that likes to jump in the deep end. I'll figure it out as I go, drink from the fire hose kind of thing. So some of the things that surprised me is it's freaking hard to be self-published without an agent and without a publisher. And actually publishers won't even look at you if you don't even have an agent. And it's very expensive. Everything that I've done, I had to pay someone for all this artwork. And some of the books, this is actually my best friend's face on there. So they had to Photoshop pictures of his face and put it in there, and with the background and the lettering. I had to copyright, I had to pay lawyers for that kind of thing. I had editors, and don't even get me started on editors. But it's a lot of stuff to do. Then you have to get the promo videos. You have to set up social media accounts, and I'm not really big into social media. I post funny memes and stuff, but now I'm found myself in a position where I have to do that. YouTube stuff. I recently bought a camera to do vlogs and whatnot, and interacting with fans. But that's actually the fun part. So those are just some of the things that I wasn't anticipating. So for writer's block, I don't really experience it. There's just days where I want to sit down and not talk to anyone and just knock out 8,000 words, or realistically, it's more like 3,000 to 4,000 on a really good day. Then there's some days I'm just not feeling it. But for writer's block, if I need to know where the story's going to go, I ask myself 2 questions. The first question is, what's something really bad that can happen right now? And the second is not really a question, it's more I just go back and reread a chapter or two to see if I can feel where the story is supposed to go. Because to segue into the next question is, what's my writing process? Some writers out there will plan an entire book. Every single chapter, they'll have what's going to happen, what has to happen, so on and so forth throughout the entire thing. And I tried doing that in the beginning, but I found what works best for me is the kind of the Stephen King approach. I know where the story's going to go in the middle and in the end, and then I just start and see and let it form organically through there. So that's another thing that really helps with writer's block, is just let it flow without thinking about it too much, just what's supposed to happen in the story. Actually, I'm in talks right now with a really up-and-coming company to have my series turn into audiobooks, and I'm very excited about that. I can't talk too much about it, but it's got me just on the edge of my seat. They asked me who are some of my favorite narrators that I listen to, and I gave them a list, a dream team in order of who I think would just really bring this series to life and make it the most entertaining that it can possibly be, and who fits the Deadpool-esque, but also the deep, raspy voice, and there's some gore in there. There's a lot of humor and so forth. So I gave a very specific list of narrators that I think would just be amazing for the series. But that's the most exciting thing I have coming down the pipeline right now. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and watching the interview. Once again, my name is Hunter Blain. You can visit me at hunterblain.com. I have a blog there. I have promo videos. There's links to my Amazon where you can purchase the books until I get an agent or a publisher. Hint, maybe a Netflix series in the future. Hint, hint. So if you guys need anything, I also have a Facebook. I have a Twitter. Hunter Blain, author. Reach out to me. Let me know what you think. And that's it, man. Thanks a lot.